Hey guys, today I am incredibly honored to be welcomed by Lynette Zang. She is the founder of Lynette Zang Enterprises, formerly served as the chief market analyst at ITM Trading, and is a renowned expert in precious metals and economic trends. With over 40 years of experience in finance, she brings a wealth of knowledge and insights into investing, market analysis, and economic forecasting. Lynette is widely respected for her dedication to helping people understand how to protect wealth in uncertain times. Her website, LynetteZang.com or www.LynetteZang.com, fully encompasses her expertise in current projects. Lynette, this is an exciting interview. I'm so happy to have you on the show today. Welcome. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm very happy to be here, Ben. Thank you so much for having me. I was excited to be here as you are excited to have me. So this will be great.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And a lot of people know that we have been doing videos for a while. We're getting back into it now. Took a little break, had my fight over here in London. And, one video that I made a few months ago was on some comments that you made during an incredible interview with Kitco News and Michelle McCory. People want to check that out. We got a link down below. But you made a lot of comments that really piqued my interest. And one of those was about CBDCs because, we see all these politicians right there. Tom Emmer, he's out there anti-CBDC bill. Ron DeSantis, I tell you what, you won't do it in Florida. And you said, don't believe any of that stuff. And you're the only other person saying it but me. I like some of those people who seem to be, I like Ron DeSantis kind of. Maybe a little more before, he ran against Trump and kind of got exposed a little bit. But I like some of these people. I think maybe they have good intentions. I don't think they know sometimes what's going on. But Lynn, I really want to know, in your perspective, does it matter whether it's Republicans or Democrats or whether it's America or it's China? Like, are CBDCs coming to the world?
Well, 100% CBDCs are coming to the world. Now, whether or not they're going to stick with the world, my hope is that we can create a quiet revolution by buying those assets. For me, it's physical gold and silver outside of the system so that we have a seat at the table in this new iteration, because you can sure see how well we've all done with the central bankers and how much they care about us. So, yes, I do think it's inevitable. If you look at the tests around the world, a lot of times, and I'm going to exclude China because China just really knows how to control their citizens to a large degree, not completely, though. That's something that gives me a lot of hope. But, they'll give the population these CBDCs and the population will spend them. It's whether or not they will reload them. So, the work is going on, whether anybody or any of our politicians say we're not going to allow it or not. The work is definitely going on to put them in place because the current system is dead.
Right.
That's simple. It died in 2008. They got to come up with a new system. And they've been working on this for a while. And so, when they're ready for the transition, we're going to have it.
They've been working on this since I think the 50s, or maybe even earlier. I don't know. I think at least 1971. I think at least 1971 is when we went off the gold standard. I believe that was an intentional move that was not organized only by the American government. I believe we call them the both children family, the famous banking family from Europe. I think they have a lot of control over a lot of different things that people see, and I think that they had a hand in getting America off the gold standard because currency life cycle. Something we were talking about before we went on air. Ray Dalio's video, New World Order. Or I can't remember what his about the changing guard of currencies and systems and things. And I think right now, as we are heading towards a transition, it's important for people to understand kind of what we're talking about. So, what does this next financial system? Right, it started 2008, kind of officially with the death of when we had the bailouts and the financial crisis. We
Right.
started moving towards digital currency, of course, Bitcoin, white paper written in Halloween, on Halloween of 2008 and launched in early January of 2009, right around the same time. And you don't think that's maybe a coincidence? I know you said some cool stuff about that before as well. But like, what does this system that they're bringing about right now, what does it look like?
Well, unfortunately, what they want is full surveillance. It's almost like when we're talking about life cycles and currency life cycles, and when we went from the Middle Ages and we went all the way around, and I think we're going back to that point where we're in feudal times, where you just have a handful of people that own everything and everybody else has to rent. And so they need to be able to control the population. And they can do that with the new currency if it's a full surveillance currency, which is exactly what they're going for. So that everything flows into it, flows out of it. All physical assets are digitized. And that actually creates, the globalization myth, right? I mean, I was a stockbroker in the 80s. All I heard about was how great globalization was. And I remember during that point thinking, I can see some problems with this, right? And so now all we're talking about is the deglobalization. But if you look at the financial system, that is getting more and more integrated, even as supply chains are shifting. And you've got the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, which every member is either they're treasury secretaries and they're central bank chiefs, unelected official that meets all of the time. They have a currency in there called the SDR, stands for special drawing rights. It's just a name. It doesn't really mean anything. And that is a basket of currency, but they are working on a universal currency because there's no limits to how many currencies they can put in that basket. And so they would control the universal currency, and then you would still have the local currency and therefore not realize that anything had really changed, when in reality, everything has changed, which is exactly what happened in 1971. And I was there as a teenager, as a late teenager. I think 71, I think I would have been 16 or 17. So, I remember the chaos and everything that was happening before that. And the NSA white paper on how to make a mint came out in 96. And if you look at that, it really describes cryptocurrencies.
It does. And I'll be honest, there's a lot of things like, I've been in the space, in the crypto space. I didn't know anything about finance or economics before I got into crypto in 2012. And really 2017 is when I really kind of took it all in. And so I don't have this background, to kind of understand a lot of those different things. And crypto is something that got me in and got me excited and made me want to learn about a lot of this stuff. And I think most people, they just don't ever get to an exciting point in finance, and that this is why kind of these people are able to do this. And I think we'll talk about who these people are, because there are specific entities. IMF, you mentioned one. The IMF is full of facilitators. Facilitators are people who are used by the power structure, the control systems in the world to carry out their bidding. You look at someone like Larry Fink, for instance. Larry Fink is on, I don't know for 100% sure what I'm about to say, but it's very close. He's on the WEF. He's like a board member of the Trilateral Commission. He's in on the Bilderberg, right? We know the stuff he does for ESG and the World Economic Forum. So you see people like Larry Fink. These are people that carry out these things, and this is why they're able to have these worldwide systems of control. Now, you go back to 1989 when The Economist magazine, the famous, of course, The Economist magazine, people may not know this. The editor-in-chief in 1989 was a Rothschild. I think it was Forrest. I can't remember the first name, but there was a Rothschild that was editor-in-chief of The Economist magazine. They put out this idea of this one world currency, right? The Phoenix on the front. It's actually got a Stellar XLM logo on it, which is a little interesting, one of the top cryptocurrencies on that cover. But here's the question I have. Is this universal CBDC that we could be looking at, is this the one world currency that kind of has been predicted for years throughout the information networks that a lot of these families control, such as The Economist? Do you think this is it? Do you think it's all been leading to this?
I think it certainly could have, and I think we need to take our power back as individuals. So, absolutely. They've been working toward this since the 20s, and with the first time that they allowed just the general public to have credit, right?
Oh, okay.
And we saw how all of that risk in the stock markets were transferred to the public. But I want to point something out, because you talked about when you got involved in cryptocurrencies, et cetera, the way that they make this transition seem like it's like a natural progression is they'll bring out whatever their idea is, and they will allow people to make a lot of money and get a lot of acceptance and get them to adapt. I've really been watching Bitcoin since it was $7 a coin. And you might think, well, look at how stupid you are, because after all, look at where it is right now. But I always saw it as a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
And adoption of cryptocurrencies has been huge. And what do you see now? You see the IMF coming out with papers, basically, private cryptocurrencies bad.
Yeah.
CBDCs good. Right?
Yeah, it's so funny.
Right.
Once you see it, it's so silly. It's like, are y'all serious? Are y'all trying this again? But everybody else is like, oh, this is cool, amazing, I love it.
Well, but they do that. You think about
Right.
1913 when the Federal Reserve was put in place. Mm-hmm. You remember hearing about the Roaring '20s?
Right. Yes.
The Roaring '20s happened simply because, here, I have this, 1/20th of an ounce. You can see how teeny weeny itty bitty it is. A 20th of an ounce of gold backed $1, right? When they installed and legalized the Federal Reserve, which is neither federal nor does it hold reserves, by the way, but when they installed the Federal Reserve, they now expanded that. And so this little 20th of an ounce of gold now backed $2.40.
Oh.
So, yeah. So if you look at the purchasing power chart, what you'll see is this huge 50% drop off because of all of this new money that they printed into the economy,
yeah,
and allowed the public to have credit. And they're watching the stock market go up, like we're seeing these days, right? Up. And the it's kind of interesting. This is really kind of interesting because prior to this point, central banks had a 15 to 20 year life, right? They had a charter. Our Federal Reserve had a charter, a 20-year charter, which means it was over in, what year was that? 1933. Is that a coincidence? I don't know. In 27, I think it was 27, for the first time historically ever, the Federal Reserve, the central bank, was given a perpetual charter. So never has to end. 1928, the industrialists, the guys that knew that this was the stock market was a house of cards, well, the public was flooding in wanting to emulate them while they were getting out. Oh, doesn't that sound familiar?
It's every time, yeah.
So can you see this? And if you read their documents on how to make these transitions, they say this. Now, this may not be an exact quote, but it's a pretty close quote. We know how to do this. We just get the public comfortable and used to it, and then we make the transition.
Yep.
So they have a whole 18-step program on how they're making the transition. It's in one of my very favorite reports, which was 2015, breaking below the lower zero bound. In other words, how do you attack principal, right? Because negative rates attack principal, right? If you're now paying to loan somebody money and accepting less back than what you give them, you're attacking your principal. Right. So in there's this beautiful 18-step program on how to transition us, how to get rid of cash overnight, getting people to volunteer, right? How do we get people to volunteer? This is how you do it. You keep things looking as normal as possible. You look at, hey, as a teenager in 1971, if I had a $20 bill in my pocket prior to August of that year, then in September, I still had a $20 bill, but it was a brand new bill. It was a different bill, but they pretty much look the same. I've got lots of examples of that. They pretty much look the same. And so we transitioned into the new system, but nobody knew it. Nobody really understood that basically the central bank had given over the control of inflation or rather the government, Nixon, had given over control of inflation to the central banks. And here's the problem. They controlled the rate and speed of inflation with interest rates. What happened in 2008? Interest rates were dropped to zero and they were held basically there for 15 years.
Yeah.
Right? So what does that mean? Well, that means that all of these, a lot changed since 2008. A lot has changed. But a lot of people were not in this environment prior to that, and they didn't realize really what happened in 2008. I knew the system died. Shearson was my alma mater. I was watching that like a hawk.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to retire, actually.
No.
And I had a little 2-bedroom condo. I could lock the door and off I go. No big deal. And then 2008 happened. I did not think I would see it in my lifetime. And I went, holy crap. So instead, I bought a property in Central Phoenix and started working on my mantra, which is food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter, because these are all the things we need to sustain a reasonable standard of living. And these transitions are very, very, very painful.
Well, I can tell you, we're watching it right now. I know I've been doing a little bit of traveling here, and even back in the States, I just constantly, like people don't realize, we're going to get into this a little bit more when we talk about BRICS here in a few minutes, but like, in my opinion, I've traveled around the world. In my opinion, I think America is the best place to live, and it's not close. And the reason why is because of our quality of life. If you need something, there's a store around the corner at all times. You can always get it. Well, it was like that before COVID, but now Walmart closes at 11 o'clock at night, right? Walmart's not open at 2 a.m. in the morning. Our quality of life is going down slow. You go to the store, you get bad service. You're like, man, what a fluky day today. For the 7th time in a row, I went to this place and I get bad service. No.
No.
Quality of life is going down. In these other BRICS countries, quality of life is going up. And that's what happens. That's these world currency life cycles and the transitions of how entire cultures and countries boom and bust. I think when you talk about it's got to appear normal, like the first time I heard you say that, which is amazing because I have completely changed my mind on some of the stuff you said just since you did that interview 2 months ago, which was I did not believe that Bitcoin was a Trojan horse. As a person who's in crypto, I was like, come on, Lynette, you're just not a crypto person. I get it. But the thing is in reality, I was missing the concept. The concept is not, Bitcoin was not a Trojan horse. I don't believe itself. Like you said, bring people in, make them money, get excited about it so the transition seems normal. People with Bitcoin, they got some sovereign wealth. Like in your interview, you said you think it's you're not sure if it's in the system or out of the system. I think it's a little both. I think there's been a lot of financial control from the outside, but from the inside, I do think
But
it's
how
out of the system.
Wall just adopted it. I mean,
Exactly.
oh, goodness, I'm sorry, they're making product after product
Yeah.
on it. I mean, it's not in the system.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
system. It's in the system.
Yeah. Well, in terms of the financial control, the centralization of the finances of Bitcoin, I believe are getting under control. There are still a lot of wallets that have large amounts of Bitcoin that are not associated with, I think, any of these corporations or older addresses, Bitcoin miners and stuff. But the plan was always, I think, made to kind of bust up the financial success of Bitcoin from the inside and through control. But I think the more important part here is we could argue on the creation of Bitcoin. I think your theory with the NSA, I tend to think there were a lot of moving parts and a lot of different players in there, and they don't even know that they did it. I don't think. I think there was a bigger plan, and the pieces that were involved don't know. But what I do know,
That could very well be.
right? I think that might be what's going on, but it's the concept of crypto, and it's the concept of tokenization, and it's the concept of linking your assets, tokenizing them so they're linked to your digital ID, which we haven't even seen yet, but that's coming, right? And so my question to you is, what do you think? Since we're watching this tokenization and this idea that people are getting used to their ideas on having all of their assets tracked and linked to them digitally. Where do you think this is going? Like, what is the kind of plan with this tokenization? I'm sure it's just so we can all make money on our assets, right?
They've talked about this. So, I mean, I've been talking about the cryptocurrencies for many, many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that the IMF has discussed in tokenization is breaking things down. So let's say you own a home, right? And now you've got all your equity on your home broken down into itty bitty pieces. And remember, perception management, managing how you perceive things and therefore how you move forward, is a formalized government plan. It started with Reagan when he brought Rupert Murdoch over, and it's integrated. So nudging you without you realizing it. So the discussion is having your equity right here, easy to spend. And now you see this boat. And all of a sudden, well, I have lots of equity here. I want that boat. And you start to spend your equity. And that seems to work quite well for ultimately enabling equity to travel easily globally. And let's see, when you volunteer spending all the equity that you have in your homes or in your cryptos or in any of your assets, who do you blame? You blame yourself. You look in the mirror and say, God,
Bad decision.
what stupid choices I made. When what you don't realize is that this was all part of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching tokenization and reading what they've been saying about it for a long time. It really is a mechanism to get you to volunteer. Because if they come at you and say, we're taking everything, you're going to fight, right? But if you volunteer it, you look in the mirror and you blame yourself. Same thing with middle America, how middle America is virtually gone. And when did that really, really start? Early 2000s with Amazon, who did not have to charge state taxes, did not have to make money because Wall Street was funding them. But now middle America, they all work for Amazon, don't they? They've all got their stores there and a lot of other businesses, which was really the engine for employment in this country. I mean, it's basically gone. But I know business owners that ended up going bankrupt and they blame themselves rather than it was not a level playing field. Right. And then after they got what they thought they wanted, well, now Amazon charges state tax and they charge this and they make money and blah, 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 blah.
They trap you. Yeah.
It's all a plan designed to go in a way, but to get you to volunteer so you don't see where it's really coming from. And it pisses me off, you can tell. It doesn't.
I know you have to be frustrated with the mindset of the average person and just the willingness to just stay in a fog and a haze over this stuff and like, oh, Federal Reserve, it shouldn't have been created like that. Yeah, some conspiracy theory. These crazy people over here. And that's the way that people like us are made to look. I'm the Alex Jones of crypto because I'm telling you that there's control structures, right? That's right. What they say. They try to discount you and discredit you. When in reality, we're giving you information that's all easily searchable and it's right in front of your eyes. And we don't have to take it out of context. We just tell you what's going on. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's why in my work, on my YouTube channel, you have links to not all of the research that I do because it would be a book every darn time.
Right.
But to lots and lots of research. Don't take my word for it, but I don't want you to take their word for it either. Right. And when
that's the problem. That's the problem. That's the problem right there, Lynette, is that the alternative to listening to the message that we have is actually like buying into whatever the media is telling us or whatever the internet's telling us, whatever they've rigged the algorithm to make you think is going on. Like that's the thing is there's just not a good source of reliable information out there outside of from people who have learned this stuff experientially.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I think these people need our help. And, I've been doing this for so long. I'm past that point of frustration. Oh. I am here to be, of service and help them because what we're asking people to do is have a paradigm shift. And so therefore they have to admit that what they have believed their entire lives is a big fat lie, which I see happening with the younger generations now, right? That American dream theory that, if you get in there and you work really hard, you can have your own business and you can be really successful and you can be part of the 1%ers and you can have a home and you can raise your family. And a lot of people are graduating with student debt or, and they realize that that's not true. So I do see a revolution. I would like it to be quiet and I would like it to be peaceful just by converting this garbage into sound money.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that, precious metals is something because I kind of, Lynette, one thing I'd like is I want you to teach me about gold. I don't know much about it. I've been trying to watch some videos. It's one of these things that it just kind of gets a little boring to me because I've kind of already stated my claim is, okay, I'm a Bitcoin guy. I'm a digital coin guy. But I definitely believe that there is a lot of power in diversifying, and I think that the more you learn about the potential of the control that's being put in over Bitcoin, at least from a financial perspective, with the amount of the supply, the BlackRock and Grayscale and the CCP and Russia that they are in the United States, what they all own is a huge amount of supply, so they can control it from that perspective. But
Right.
you could also make the argument, like gold and precious metals, like those prices are rigged as well, right? Like you have like De Beers, and I think the Rothschild family messed with the diamond prices, precious metals, and of course you've got the Russian natural gas that was taken off the stock market in London. I know it's not precious metals, but
Such a good point, which is intangible assets are easy to manipulate.
mm,
And what you're really referring to is the financialization of the world. And that started in earnest. It started really when Nixon handed over control to the bankers because they're private, right? And so their job is really to support their system. And what do they know? They know debt and they know income. So, and for me, so much when you're talking about diversification, well, why is it important to be diversified? The reason why it's important to be diversified is because what you're attempting to do, whether you realize it or not, is create the broadest base of buyer. So if this dries up over here, you're good over here.
yeah.
When I'm looking at precious metals, first of all, GLD, which is an ETF, and you just own shares of a trust, you don't own gold. That is a product, the spot gold market, right? They always refer to it as gold. That's not gold. That is a contract that is supposed to represent gold unmined in the ground, right? Once you get into the physical world, there is a finite amount, and we already hit peak gold in 2018. But with gold, it became the primary currency metal and has been for thousands of years because it has the broadest base of functionality, and in and of itself, therefore, it has the broadest base of buyer. This right here is diversified, right? So it's used in every single sector of the global economy, from space travel to electronics, to medicine, to the financial system, to art, to jewelry, right? So it automatically, that's why it has never gone to zero. Plus, it's indestructible. The challenge that I have, and this isn't always going to be true, it's just that what I'm watching them do is develop the next currency to shift us into. And that's why I'm standing back and paying very close attention, but not really participating in that, because I don't know who's going to survive. But what is the functionality of this stuff? It's used in one place, and there used to be 4 full functions of money, right? Number one, as a tool of measure, right? So therefore, how much do you earn? How much do I earn, right? A tool of measure, a tool of barter, a short-term store of value so that you're fairly paid for your labor, and a long-term store of value so that no matter when you use that money, it has the same level of purchasing power. Over the years since I've been doing this, and I've been doing it even, I mean, I know this is going to sound weird, but I have absolutely been groomed for this moment in time. And I really started when I was about, 4 years old, 10 years old. So, and I'm going to be 70 in October. So I've been doing this.
When's your birthday?
October.
What's yours? 27th.
27th. Okay. I'm the 15th. Okay. And so I've been doing it on all different levels as a banker, as a stockbroker. My uncle was a major antique dealer, so he taught me how tangible assets work and all of that. So that's why I say I've been groomed for this moment in time. But for me, when I'm looking at the new currency, I'm saying, okay, what are its functions? Cryptocurrencies, the best thing that I can really see about them, and I really want you to correct me if I'm wrong, because I really don't want to misspeak ever, is that you can put a lot of it on a thumb drive, stick it in your pocket, go anywhere in the world, and have access.
Correct.
But you can do that with gold and silver too, jewelry, right? I have special necklaces, gold and silver necklaces that go under my clothes when I travel in the world, so that if something should happen and I need money like that, there's a market for it all over the world. So that's where I have my hiccup with the cryptocurrencies, is I need to see more functionality, and I can see them building them into smart contracts. I can see, I can see the good. I can see the good of it, but I can also see the bad of it.
Well, I think you're coming from a perspective of you see the big picture, and when you see the big picture, you see these things are just used as control, and that, like on an end, it's so weird because when you look on an individual level, right? Like on an individual level, if a person owns crypto, and let's say kind of like you were talking about with contracts with gold, right? Like if you own it on exchange, you don't really own it, but if you got it in your ledger in your pocket, okay, you do own it. There are elements of crypto that fit the responsibility that we're wanting to teach people. But unfortunately, most people in crypto, they just see number go up, they buy an exchange and whatever, because they're still the people, even some of your early adopters, like they're still the people that they're still in that fog of what's going on in the world, and not understand that there's more important things. But I really want to get to, there's a couple of things. I know we actually only have, I think, let's see, we've got 12 minutes left, so you had a hard stop here. So I definitely want to bring up a couple subjects, and then hopefully definitely in the future we can continue this conversation. But I want to talk about, we keep talking about these financial systems, and we keep saying they, right? Oh, they do this, and we refer to the central banks, right? Because the central banks,
The World Bank, the BIS,
yes,
and yes, there are entities that are above them, but they
yes,
like to be removed so that you don't know who's really pulling the string.
correct, yeah. You're correct. So you see it all, and but the audience doesn't. Sometimes they think I'm crazy. Like we've been watching in crypto, and it's why like I've been told very many times that like nobody that's making content in crypto like really understands what's happening with our integration into the bigger picture here.
Right.
This is what I like to say in the crypto world. I like to say to every crypto YouTuber and every person on Twitter that's putting out information on crypto, they're basically just regurgitating what another YouTuber said or what they read on CoinDesk, which is the same mainstream media. I could get into why CCP actually controls CoinDesk. It's a long story, but through more of these financial controls, Victor Lee owns Bullish Global that now is bought in. It's all a big mess. And the thing is though is like we've been reading and looking at all the wrong stuff. We've been looking at CoinDesk. We should have been looking at the videos from the Bank of International Settlements.
Yep.
We were Consensus. I got kicked out of Consensus just for being there. I didn't even do anything. That's good because you know what? I should have been at the World Economic Forum finding out what's going on. These are the places and these are the people that are actually telling us the reality of what's going on, and people are not listening. So if you just kind of talk, when we talk about they, I know you kind of briefly mentioned it a second ago, but like what is the boogeyman? What are people like? What is this control structure? We know these are kind of elements, but like what is the overall goal of all this stuff?
Well, the overall goal is to control the population because, I mean, let's face it, there's only so much money that you need. There are only so many private jets that you can have, right? So when you're up at that rarefied air level, like what did Meyer Rothschild say way back when they were establishing this banking dynasty? I care not, right? Whoever controls the money controls the people. And Hitler said the same thing. And maybe a little bit differently, it really is about control. And China is so much further along with that. And look at how with social scoring, et cetera, you can see how they control the population. But what gives me hope is that the Chinese public, over a few of these issues in real estate and the stock market, they're starting to, and the COVID lockdowns, they're starting to protest. They're the most suppressed people on the planet, and they're actually coming together and protesting. And guess what? Some things have changed because of that protest. That gives me so much hope. You have no idea how much hope that gives me.
Yeah.
I mean, what? You're one person. I'm one person. I had someone say to me, but I'm one person. What can I can't make a difference. You're right. One person can't make a difference. But look at this medium that we have to work with, and look at the millions and millions and millions of people that we get to hopefully get in front of and help them have that paradigm shift. And I totally agree with Ray Dalio. I do believe that we are going to see a revolution because the younger generation, I mean, I'm a baby boomer. Right? That generation had all the opportunities and had the ability to build all of this wealth. The generation that's coming up now, wow. I mean, they're coming into their working lives with a tremendous amount of debt on their shoulders.
And not only that, not only are they coming into to the workforce with all this debt from all this schooling, but I'm telling you, this Gen Z, they're coming into jobs with the idea that they shouldn't have to work. That's this idea, like, you know what? We should get to live and experience life and go on vacations and do all this stuff just because it's our right. It's our birthright to get to do that by being born here. And that is a serious idea that has taken hold. Like, I want to go and do music and travel. I don't want to have to work and yeah. But that's not reality. That's not the way the system works. And so a lot of these people, not only are they coming in with like, external factors, but internally, people that are coming into the workforce are just different now. And this is exactly what you said earlier. It's got to happen slowly over time. You got to get used to this idea. And now, boom, here we are.
Exactly. And you're dependent upon the system. And if all of your wealth is held inside of the system, and I do want to go back to something, and I'm going to look more deeply in it. That was the note that I put down there. But I'm sorry, Ben, but if you don't hold it, you don't own it, because everything else is a contract. And any contract is only as good as the counterparty to that contract. That's the challenge right now. Is this always going to be true? Well, yeah, probably. If it's a contract, it's always going to be as good as the counterparty to the contract. And that's why any portfolio of any size, whatever else you're doing, you need to diversify with hard assets that's outside of the system. And the Bank for International Settlements, which is a central banker's central bank and the biggest bank in the world, really doing lots of work to get these CBDCs put through. But when they ask what share for gold in currency reserves, they say in the conclusion 4 key things. Now, let me see if I can remember all of them. Okay. This to me is one of the most important ones, is that gold is the only, not one of 2, not one of 5, the only financial asset that runs no counterparty risk. You hold it, you own it. They also say that gold held at home is not subject to geopolitical risks and manipulations. I don't know. You think we got some of that stuff flying around? It's also been a proven inflation hedge. Cryptocurrencies have been around since 2009. Their test is coming. Some will survive, some will not survive. I don't know which ones those are yet. I can make a guess, but I don't know for sure. And what's the 4th one? Oh, it's as a war chest, right? In highly adverse situations. Well, the patterns that I have seen, you have to remember that there are more than 4,800 currencies that do not exist, government debt-based fiat money currencies that do not exist. Because if a government can say, oh, this is money, well, here, this is a $10 trillion Zimbabwe note.
Nice.
Right? You know what I can buy with this? I'm a trillionaire. I'm a trillionaire in Zimbabwe. You know what I can buy with this? Not a thing.
Amazing.
And I would urge all of your viewers to pay close attention to what's happening in Zimbabwe right now. Because what's actually happening, they are on yet another new currency, the ZIG, Z-I-G, which stands for Zimbabwe Gold. And supposedly this currency, this 6th iteration, has a component of gold in it. But here's the problem. Here's the problem that I have in general with intangibles. I can't convert that into anything. What can I convert it into? This stuff? Right?
Feel safe.
Right? I mean, it has no value. It is absolutely, even officially, my favorite website is the FRED, F-R-E-D, which is the Federal Reserve's Education Department, right? Even though they manipulate numbers and to make things.
I'd love to talk about that manipulation with you one day. That's a whole other conversation. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so easy to do. Yeah. It's so easy to do. But honestly, we have to get past this and realize where we are in this trend cycle, what the true value of an ounce of gold and an ounce of silver physical is, because you're not going to find it if you're looking to Wall Street. Wall Street is not a place of good discovery. It is a trading mechanism. Everything has been turned into a trading product, including your food, including your energy, including your water, including the air, including everything. And what matters, and this should be blatantly obvious, what matters is that the banks make money.
Yeah. Because the banks, this is just gonna blow people's mind. This is crazy. The banks are not government instruments; they're private corporations, and they control everything. It's amazing, isn't it? It really is.
And look at the corporate profits.
Yeah,
corporate profits. Every time we hit a recession, I mean, go back on that. I'm telling you, the FRED, F-R-E-D, and in that little search bar, put purchasing power of consumer dollar, put corporate profits. They're bouncing right now, so that's a problem, right? But every time we hit a recession, they go up. They go up. Why? Because central banks do this and give money away for free. You and I have to pay interest. Do you know that the banks pay less interest than the federal government, whose interest you and I, taxpayers, are responsible for?
Of course, because it's all a scam. It's all a scam. The world economy, the world financial system is a complete scam. It is a Ponzi scheme like people can't understand. And these are not words that we're just throwing out there because we're finance people. It's a Ponzi scheme. No, you really have to understand the banks. The bankers really do run everything. They control the governments. They control the central banks. The central banks control the Bank of International Settlements and the IMF and the WEF to go into the ESG scores. All that stuff is controlled 100%. And this is a way with this tokenization to transition into something new. And I think that at the end of the day, the corporations, look, if we go back to the creature that came from Jekyll Island, that book, they talk about when the Federal Reserve was planned out by Paul Warburg, was actually the architect, close friend with the both children family at the time. The Warburgs and the Rothschilds and the Oppenheimers and the Rockefellers and Vanderbilt, they're all connected, right? And the idea is the Federal Reserve, it was a way for them to keep corporate profits and for the banks to continue to collect assets around the world. That's what our entire financial system is based on. And when you think about all that, and when you look at the fact that part of that deal with the Federal Reserve was for bailouts. Bailouts were part of the deal. Work together. We'll make sure that we make money. When it pops, the people will lose all the money and we'll make more money. And that's exactly what they did.
Exactly right. And hold on one second. Marie, would you ask him to give me another 10 minutes? Because I'm having a good time. Okay. 15. Okay. Let's take the pressure off just a little bit. But you're absolutely right. And the other thing is if you read all of the IMF's documentations and the World Bank and all these guys, if you actually read that, they actually tell you that they want to create that distance so that, and have the retail public introduce all of these things to you so that you don't realize that it's part of their plan, meaning all of these guys for control. So yeah, all the central bankers, but it's much higher than that. There are things that I can't prove, but you go to the FRED and you look at corporate profits and it's pretty obvious to me. In the meantime, you started out talking about standard of living. And in the US, we enjoyed this huge privilege because of what's happening, because we linked our currency directly to Saudi Arabia with the petrodollar.
Right.
We were about to give up the world reserve status before that. And with the BRICS nation and Saudi Arabia joining the BRICS, and I know that there was a rumor, and I'm digging into this, that came out a couple of days ago as far as this document not being signed. So I'll do a piece on it, but I got to dig more because I
have some info. I know a lot of stuff about Saudi Arabia and BRICS. If you want to, what we're referring to.
Well, where the 50-year agreement between Saudi Arabia and the U.S., and then the Saudi Arabia did not re-sign that agreement. Yeah. But, you know, the U.S. dollar has been losing its status as the world reserve currency for a long time. These things don't happen easily, but they have or quickly, I should say, rather.
We've been hearing it forever. We've been hearing, like, I'm sure you know, is it Stansbury Research? Is that the name of the place? That they're always like, you know, the world is ending, the dollar is dead. And they've been doing it for, you know, 30 or 40 years. And it's like, I heard that stuff so much. And at first when I'd hear it, they'd put on an XM radio ad like early on. And I'd be like, oh my God, this sounds terrible. The world's, oh my gosh, let me look up this website. And you go and they just try to sell you a newsletter and they're not actually trying to tell you anything. And it makes you feel like all this stuff, people saying, oh, the world's economy is going down, that it's all people crying wolf and it's all, you know, it's not going to happen. But you got to remember what we keep talking about. It's got to happen slowly over time so that the frog doesn't realize it's getting boiled in the water.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And, you know, I mean, it was in late 2000, December, around Christmas time, actually, when the Federal Reserve first in 2000 that started buying the debt of the U.S. government. Right. Wait a minute. Nobody talked about it in 2000, and they've been doing it consistently. They didn't talk about it until 2008, 2009. And now all of a sudden, even though that's what a third world country has to do because they can't attract enough money to buy their debt, now it's like everybody's doing it, right? Now it's out in the open and it's supposed to be a good thing. And yet it is a real indication of where we are in the trend cycle. And that is the thing that I do. I've been studying currency life cycles since 1987. Thank you very much, Shearson, because my education came from the head of currency trading in the 80s, right? And when you start digging into it, you start looking at fiat money, which is government-backed money. Mm-hmm. And you see a repeatable pattern. These things that happen every single time we transition from one currency mechanism into the next currency mechanism. And all of them are happening. And not only that, I've been talking about the reset since 2009 after I listened to a Bloomberg interview with Christine Lagarde, who is the head of the ECB.
Central bank. Yeah.
Now the head of...
Wait, did she the IMF? She have my IMF now?
And she's back again. Yeah, she went to, the head of the IMF. You're right. Then now she's at the ECB.
Well, yeah, that's all it was. Yeah, she transitioned. Correct. Yeah, that's right.
Right. Well, because it's just a revolving door.
Right. Facilitators. It doesn't matter where they're at. They're all doing the same job.
Exactly. They're all doing the same job. But in that little 20-minute interview, she used the term reset at least 28, 29 times. And I was gobsmacked. I was just like, okay, I knew the system died in 2008 when she came on in 2009 and started talking about that. And then China came out that same year and said, what about the SDR? What about the SDR? Which has been around since 69. People in the US need to understand that there is a mechanism that is already in place and has been tested, and it's called the substitution fund. So any country that is sitting on dollar-denominated assets, bonds, currencies, products, whatever, can deposit them in this substitution, and then they get washed and converted into SDR denominated assets or instruments. What that does in theory, then the IMF can regulate the rate and speed at which those dollars go back to the US. Therefore, I don't think it's going to work, but this is the theory. Attempting to regulate the rate and speed of inflation so that the US public doesn't realize what's going on. But what it also does in that moment is it converts the SDR into a bigger global reserve currency. It's already a reserve currency. Everybody's had some since 1969. If you go to USPS, the US Postal Service, and you put in the search bar SDR, you're going to see it comes up. So it's been used internationally since 69. They don't need to recreate the wheel. They just need to expand that wheel and the overview. That's why they're working on the universal currency. They've been working on that since 69, for goodness sakes. So there's a lot that's happening, and the US has been losing its status for quite some time, when in 2000 they couldn't attract enough buyers of our debt. Now the Federal Reserve is the key buyer of our debt. To tell you the truth, yeah, wasn't Ernest Hemingway, when they asked, well, how did you go bankrupt? And he said, slowly at first, then fast. That's the way these things happen. So you don't have the time or the opportunity to get prepared.
Today has been absolutely a fantastic interview. I think my audience is going to get so much out of this. I didn't even get into really a lot of the BRICS stuff. There's 59 countries joining BRICS. 28 of them now have like financial interest. They're putting money in the new development bank. Like, they're moving forward. Like, this is getting really strong. I think there's like about 200 countries that compete in the Olympics. Now we've got like 60 countries saying they want to join BRICS. Like, they've got their own BRICS games now. So this is stuff I want to talk about with you, because I do think this is the emergence of this kind of dual economy that's going to push us back towards one world currency eventually. That's kind of, I think,
no doubt.
You see it, yeah. So, but thanks for coming on, Lynette. Tell everybody where they can find you at, and where people can find more information about gold that you're talking about, because I know it's something you really like to teach people on. So where can people go to get educated about that and find more about you?
Well, they can go to LynetteZang.com. I really publish quite a bit of information on our YouTube channel, and the address at Twitter is the same, at the Lynette Zang. Instagram and Facebook is at Lynette Zang, and we have the best number in the world, which is 833 GLD ZANG. So I can translate that, but it's 833-453-9264. And what we help people do is establish goals and circumstances, and then help them build their sound money portfolio. But we also support them in all the rest of the levels of the mantra: food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. And I'm here with you to help build community, because together, even though one person is not going to make that big of a difference, but together, I 100% know we can make a positive difference for a lot of people.
Absolutely. I love it. And I think that the world is changing. It's changing in front of people's eyes. It's going to look a lot different in 20, 30 years, no matter what. Whether there's a revolution and people change, or we go back to privacy and self-sovereignty, or whether we move to a place where CBDCs are everything and everything's controlled, but we're heading to one of those, to a new world. And it's just, how bad is it going to be? Or how good is it going to be? I think we all have a role in determining that, and we got to put our foot down somewhere. So thanks for joining us, Lynette. Can't wait to get this interview out and see what my audience thinks. And everybody, thanks for joining us. And Lynette, we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.